Sporting Journal Radio, presented by OnX.
So I know it's the off season for most upland bird hunters here around Minnesota and the surrounding region. Of course, last weekend in South Dakota, if you want to go chase pheasants. And a lot of guys are traveling. I've been spending more time with a camera chasing some winter pheasants around and shooting them with a camera just because I haven't been able to travel. But that's going to change hopefully pretty soon. There's an outside chance I might spend a little time in South Dakota before the season ends, but it's not looking good for me. But one guy who has been spending more time on the road than at home chasing these birds around is Ben Brettingen, who joins us now on the show. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. It feels good to be sitting in my home.
And you're still married, right? I mean, you survived all these trips?
Well, as far as I know, I haven't seen her in like 6 months, but...
Well, obviously I was living vicariously through you on Instagram there for a little while, pretty jealous about all those trips since I was back home. Now, I can't really complain. I do a lot of pheasant hunting back home here pretty much every day. I like to tell people I live at a destination to some extent. Not like where you've gone, of course. And I want to talk about where you went, how many states you went to, what all birds you hunted, because there's some different. I just saw Brian Winter, I think, shot a chucker up in the mountains somewhere recently. So I was like, man, I would love to go on some of these trips and shoot some of these different, or chase some of these different birds. The chase is the fun part of it. How many different species of upland birds did you hunt this past fall?
Oh, I don't know if I've counted up the numbers, but pheasants, quail, forest grouse, so roughies, woodcock, huns. What else? Sharpies. There's a bunch of them. Pretty much everything you can chase in the upper Midwest, less prairie chickens. I have not done prairie chickens this year, but it was a heck of a fall starting in Montana with the Sharpies, huns, and then rolled right through grouse season into pheasant season, then finish it off with quail. So,
have you hunted chickens here before in Minnesota? Have you done the Minnesota hunt?
I never have done the Minnesota hunt. All the chicken hunting I've done has been in either South Dakota or Kansas. Yep.
Were any of them new for you this year?
In terms of species, no. This year I didn't really hunt any new species, but I got to spend a lot of time in the grouse woods this year, chasing grouse and woodcock. Normally I'll spend 5 or 10 days, not that much time at all. And this year I spent, I think, 25 some days in the grouse woods, and really enjoyed that. I hadn't spent that much time in ever probably, and hunted them across upper Wisconsin and Minnesota, and just kind of fell in love with hunting forest grouse. So
that's the beauty of having the kind of job that we have. I know we're going to make a lot of people mad right now talking about hunting all the time, but I mean, that's like, I don't make a lot of money and it took me a long time to get this job. But the reason I have this job is so I can do just that. And that's go out and chase birds every day, or deer or whatever, just hunt and fish as often as possible and try to make scratch out some sort of living with it. And the food prep, I wasn't really planning on inserting this question here, but I'm going to, because you're talking about roughies so much. Food prep has become such a big part of what I do. When you do hunt all the time, we eat it every day in the fall, whether it's goose or duck or pheasant, whatever the case may be. Ruffed grouse may be one of the best birds for table fare out there. What's your favorite way to cook it?
Oh, it really depends. I mean, to be honest, one of my favorite things to do, like one of the best meals ever, is when you get done with the hunt and either you go back home or right on the tailgate, is just to saute it with butter, onions, maybe a little bit of mushroom, like right there. Just flip it over, not very much, still pretty rare on the inside. And I don't know, it's something about sitting on a tailgate and drinking beer and just eating it right there that does it for me.
Butter. Anytime you put it in butter. We did a lot of pheasant in butter. Like I was doing olive oil quite a bit, and Dan cooked some pheasant a couple of times. He's like, I just fried it up in butter. And I'm like, we're doing that again.
Something about being unhealthy.
That's right. It's either Corey Loeffler got me into bacon grease, and now Dan's getting me into butter. Like, I'm not the healthiest guy, but I've been trying to cook somewhat healthy most of my life. And now that I'm getting older, I'm doing all bacon grease and butter. So it's been nice knowing you.
One thing though, I will tell you what, my buddy Simon, he has got this Stroganoff recipe. And for me, Stroganoff is just like, whatever, take it or leave it, right? It's like, yeah, I like it, but not that much. But he made this recipe with Sharpies out in Montana, and he's got it up on his website. It is to die for. Super easy, and it is ridiculous. So I've made that probably 10 times this year.
What's his website? Where can we find that?
I think it's Jaeger. Hold on for a second. We might have to edit this.
Nah, we'll just roll with it. So does he? Go ahead.
It's Jaeger-food.com. Okay. And I think it's his Swiss Stroganoff recipe. And it is to die for. So
is he kind of a guy that cooks, wild game chef type deal, or what's his story?
Yeah, so Simon is actually originally from Germany, and he has moved all around the world, Africa, what have you, and landed right here just outside the Twin Cities, and we became friends. And Simon, he's a flour miller by trade, and just started hunting about 4 years ago. And he's a fiend. He loves it. That's all he does. We spent a bunch of time up at his place in northwest Wisconsin, and just for only hunting 4 years, he is just absolutely eaten up with it. So
does he call it Swiss Stroganoff?
I'm not even going to butcher his accent.
That's awesome. Well, that was in Montana. How many different states did you travel to this past fall, Ben?
I think it was about 9. Went pretty much from the Dakotas all the way to Texas, out to Montana, and then far east is Michigan this year. So
Michigan for Ruffed Grouse in Michigan?
Yep, up in the UP. So that was as far east as I made it.
What did you hunt down in Texas? Quail?
So I actually went down and hunted ducks and geese down in Texas and Oklahoma. So
sweet.
Yeah,
that's
that
awesome.
was a heck of a trip.
That's fun down there, man. I've been down in Texas a couple of times for different hunts, and if I didn't mind the heat so much, and rattlesnakes for that matter, I could see myself living in Texas. I mean, there isn't a lot of public land, which is a drawback, but that state is just so much fun. So you can do whatever you want down there, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. It was. I had not spent much time in this area before, and I went there and got off the plane, and I'm just gonna say it. It was like you go outside, it was super depressing. Like it was just barren wasteland, and I was like, yeah. Cattle pasture and nothing. I was like, oh, I don't know. It was overcast, but then we got out. Did a little hunting. It's like, okay, I could see why I could come back to this place. But, to most people, it's like, wow, there is nothing out here.
It's very dry, and the landscape is very dry. It's very different than, say the plains up here. But it's, it's, I've had a lot of good times down in Texas for sure. Mm-hmm. And I always come back sounding like I'm from down there, or trying to sound like I'm from down there in any case. Out of all those trips, because I think a lot of people, and I want to talk more about this as we get later in the show, because I think people get intimidated a little bit about making a trip like that, because if they've never been there, they don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. They don't know about licenses, license fees, if there's special tags they need, special permits, whatever, deadlines. And if they're going with somebody else that's never been there, you've got some tools with OnX, with the elite memberships, that'll help you with that. And I want to break those down in just a little bit. But did you set out to hit 9 states this year, or did they just kind of fall into place? Like I think the planning part is some of the hardest things to do, because once you get past the planning, then it's just to go. But I think it's hard to plan trips like that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, really, I knew I was going to go to Montana and hunt Sharpies and Huns out there, just because I went out there couple years ago for the first time and just fell in love with it, just figured it out, and didn't have a ton of help saying go here, go there, just kind of did it. And that's, I guess that's the biggest thing for people is, all right, you go on this trip and let's just say you don't shoot very many birds, don't shoot any birds. You have just learned that much more. And I mean, it's fine, right? Like you're not hurt. You're not out your life savings. you just got to drive around a bunch of sweet country and walk behind your dog. So I get that time is super valuable, and you want to obviously get out and harvest birds. But unless you go out and just say, I'm going to go try a new area, then you'll never have the opportunity to get into a lot of birds unless you go with somebody. But again, that's their spot. So half the fun for me is figuring it out.
Right. Well, that and it's almost like a scouting mission, right? So it's almost like driving around for a cornfield full of Canada geese. Same kind of deal. You hit a state and you drive around looking for, maybe public land that looks birdy, and you put your boots on the ground, you start walking, get that dog out for some exercise. And if you find birds, great. You come back to that spot next year. If you don't, you move on to somewhere else. The adventure is half the fun for sure. Yeah.
And so I went and hunted Kansas for the second time this year, and started out in an area I didn't know, and we were hunting private land, and that was good and dandy. But then we jumped up further north and hunted all public land, and just nobody's ever been there. So the nice thing is I did a bunch of scouting on Onyx and marked, I have, probably 25 different areas I wanted to hunt. I think we started on Sunday, and every single spot I marked pretty much had vehicles there. Then the spots that didn't have vehicles there we didn't run into hardly any birds. I think we hunted 3 days, and we're averaging about 2 coveys of quail a day, which is, to walk for 8 hours a day for 2 coveys is a lot of work. But that's what you do.
Yeah, you're gonna have days like that when you plan a trip. But how much is Onyx? I mean, obviously you work for them, but how much has Onyx became a tool for planning trips like that? I mean, it's got to be valuable.
Oh, I would never have the confidence just to strike off and say, oh, I'll go try this or try that. I would never have the ability to do that. And even you talk about going out west to hunt big game. I could go with let's just say go out to Wyoming and go antelope hunt. I feel pretty confident with the tools I have at my disposal to be successful. Where before it was you kind of had to know somebody that had been out there, done it, maybe figured it out. But now without any knowledge, I feel like I could go out there and be successful.
What trip stands out the most for you?
Man, it was just a great fall all around, but that's a tough question. I think like I said, I think I spent 80 plus days in the field this year, so it's hard to
all
choose,
of them.
But
the answer is all of them.
All of them. If I had to pick one trip, it was probably Montana for Sharpies and Huns, just because I spent, I think, 20 some odd days out there this year, just pretty much lived out there. And, it was fun because I had a bunch of people up to come and hunt with me, and that was great. But then essentially living in this community, this small town for a month, get to know a lot of the people and make friends and just kind of start to, I shouldn't say become part of the fabric, but just meet a lot of people and hang out. And that's a spot that I can't wait to go back to. And really the hunting was good, but it was mostly just about the people and the place. And
well, I mean, Travis is a nice guy. I get that. But George, how could you hang out with George for that long?
I don't know.
Just kidding, George.
He's telling me he wants to go out for another 2 weeks because he's got his little puppy. I was like, I don't think I could spend that much time with George.
He watches this, so you'll probably be hearing from him now.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun trip, I bet. What is there? Would you say, you probably won't have an answer for this, but what was, is there any trip you wouldn't do again, or what was the worst experience out there?
I would have to say that trip I was talking about in Kansas, that was pretty tough. And I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it again, but I would go about it differently. To go back to Kansas to go hunt quail in the middle of January on public land, that's just a tough road to hoe. It's not ideal. So
is that because birds are kind of pressured at that point?
Yeah. I mean, you look at a lot of the coveys we were flushing had maybe 5 to 8 birds, so that you could tell they had been shot into. And then after a certain extent, they just like pheasants or any other animals, they don't take pressure, so they'll go onto private land. So if I would do it again, and to stack on top of that, like bird numbers are not super great this year, so I'll definitely be going back to Kansas. But in saying that, I'll maybe go earlier in the year or pick a different area, something like that, or really do a better job at monitoring, hatches and bird numbers for this coming season. So that was probably the toughest trip. I mean, that was grinding it out, like I said, 8 hours a day for not many birds. So, that was probably the toughest trip.
How were Hun numbers where you saw them?
Huns were great, actually. Up Sharpies, it's hard to say because with the drought conditions out west this year, and emergency hang and grazing, there was a lot less habitat. So if you found the good habitat, there were a lot of birds in there, especially for Sharpies. But I would say as a whole, Hun numbers seemed to be up. I was running into a lot more birds this year across North Dakota and Montana than I had the previous years. And then, even you talk about Iowa, and Hun numbers are actually up in Iowa this year too. So
that's great. It's good to hear. I know we need to get those numbers up a little bit in Minnesota if possible. I did hear of a few coveys bouncing around in southwestern Minnesota this year, just from people driving around. They weren't actually hunting them, but they just saw them on the side of the road. So maybe we'll see a few more birds. I know our pheasant numbers have been doing well. We've had good weather and some decent habitat. The drought was tough on a lot of wildlife this year, of course, but I feel like our pheasants, for the most part, made it through. I think we got some older birds out there. Maybe the hatch was affected a little bit this year, but decent numbers out in those fields throughout the winter here. And so far, weather has been cooperating. I know on Instagram recently too, Ben, you kind of ran down your gear list for those trips that you took. What was it? Was that all new stuff this year, or talk about the gear that you used a little bit?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination of stuff that I tried out for the first time this year, as well as things that have been working for me in years past. So, for example, one of the couple new things that I added to the arsenal this year were I got a deck system for my truck.
Yeah, those are sweet.
And that was probably one of the biggest things that probably the biggest additions to my gear list this year, to be able to organize everything. And I travel all the time, so if you're not organized, you forget things, lose things, can't find them. So that was great. I started running the Final Rise vest this year. And again, great piece of equipment, super light. It's built for the guys out west, really, that are chucker hunters and mountain hunters, and really translated well to hunting grouse in the North Woods, and as well as pheasants. And then some staples that I've had for a while that just keep performing. One of them, First Light, their sawbuck pant. I don't work with First Light or anything, and those pants are ridiculous. I will wear them from September 1st all the way to late season roosters, and they breathe well. But in the same token, they're warm enough for what I do, and they've held up well. I think I've put probably, in the last 2 years on the one pair of pants, probably 200 days on them. So great piece of equipment. And that's people always ask me about pants, and I cannot recommend these highly enough.
I look like a homeless person when I pheasant hunt. Like, I've got chaps. When I did the governor's pheasant hunt in South Dakota back in, what year was that, 2013 or 2014? It says the year on the chaps, but you can barely see it because I've just beat the heck out of them. Like, I should have replaced them years ago. Like, every year I'm like, this will be the last year for these things, but I can still strap them on. So I'm like, I'll wear them again. And then I've got like a $5 orange vest that I wear out there. And we did some filming. Dan filmed me on a pheasant hunt this year, and I started watching the footage. I'm like, I look terrible. Like, this is ridiculous. I need some new gear. So I'm going to I like wearing the chaps. I thought about going to just some heavier Upland pants, but I usually I usually wear some sicker grinders underneath my chaps, and they're pretty comfortable and obviously stay plenty warm. But the vest, situation is something I would like to improve on. And I was looking at that vest that you were talking about this year, and I like the fact that it's just kind of straps in the bag, right? So it's a little more open. You got a little bit more breathability with it. And then having some sort of padded straps, like I don't have any kind of padding or anything in this cheap vest that I got. So if the zipper's down a little bit and I got a bird in the bag, if it's off center, then my vest is pulling down on one side, and it's ridiculous. So a new vest for sure is on the way for me. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not cheap, of course, but
no, you're going to pay for quality, but this
right.
is something you're going to wear for, you'll have it, probably it'll live longer than you will. So, but like you said, yeah, great. They've got that mesh back in there. So it's, keep in the early season when it's hot, it's super nice. And then, with the waist strap, and then the conjunction of the waist strap and the straps on your shoulders there, you can transfer weight, right? So I carry a bunch of stuff in my vest, all the dog water, tools. You get birds in there. So
can I get three pheasants in there?
Yep, I've had 4 pheasants in there down in Kansas, so it will hold 4 pheasants. It's not the most comfortable thing, and
no vest is comfortable with 4 pheasants in it. Yeah,
no, but yeah, just transferring the weight distribution from your hips to your shoulders, and yeah, like I say, if it's good for mountain hunters, I think it'll be all right for us walking,
the flatlands.
Yeah.
So. Well, you brought up a good point though about stuff for the dog. Obviously, dog water is important. And I see 2 places, maybe a human water bottle and a dog water bottle in that vest. What about, medical tools, like a first aid kit for your dog? Do you got places to put some of that stuff in there?
Yep, there's a pouch in the back where I just have a kind of a light first aid kit, and then one of in the deck in one of the boxes is just a full-on medical kit. So. The tweezers I always carry my forceps, because between the cactuses and porcupines, I use those quite frequently. But another thing that I invested, or I shouldn't say invested, they're not that expensive, but some zip ties and a good set of wire cutters, wire cable cutters. I actually was talking with George, and George works at Runnings. And he said, "Okay, I'll find the pair of cable cutters for us. So I'll let you know when I get the good steel cable cutters from him."
Good. Yeah, tell him to get me a pair too.
Yeah, because it's one thing that you might only use once in your lifetime, but when you need it, you gotta have it.
Gosh, I couldn't imagine walking up on a trap and seeing my dog, fighting for its life in there. I got nothing against trapping. I just don't want my dog anywhere near them. I have been wearing so Leishimo sent me some boots, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, and they're leather lined rubber boots, knee-high rubber boots, and they actually ask for your calf size, so they're fitted all the way up. There's a zipper that comes up the side. They're not cheap either, but they are hands down the best rubber boots I've ever worn, and I'm still wearing them. I got a few nicks and scratches in them, but I literally wear them every day pheasant hunting in the fall. Every day, cold weather, hot weather. Sometimes I'm just in my Merrells when it's really nice and warm and dry. But I've worn these boots. I can't believe how well they have stood up. And every year, same kind of thing. I'm like, I need to get new boots this year. And those Leishmos I keep wearing them, and they keep performing for me. What did you wear, and did you wear different boots for the different terrain that you were on out there?
So I pretty much this year wore, I think as is probably the last 7 years, I think I've got a pair of Loa Tibets, they're called, and it's a mountain boot, but they just don't die. I like I say, 7 years out of a boot that you're wearing at least minimum 50 days a year on.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. And when it gets wet out, I've got a pair of neoprene, rubber boots that I just need to get another pair, because I think the first day I got them, I was deer hunting and lucky enough to shoot one, and we were skinning it, and I just used my foot to move the rack and popped a hole in them the first day. I'm reminded that every time I wear them, but I did one thing that the guys out west utilize quite a bit. And I don't know why we don't do it more here, but is gaiters. So I got a pair of gaiters that I'll wear over those boots. And in South Dakota this year, I fell through a slough, just, like up to my calf type deal. And I was like, I'm going to have to walk the rest of the day with wet boots. But even with those gaiters, no, I didn't get any water inside of the boots.
Interesting.
And then it's nice with snow too, right? Because that snow just gets buried up under your boot and then eventually under your pants and into your boot. But gaiters that has been a great addition this year as well.
Having the right gear makes a hunt at home or on the road so much more enjoyable. And having good gear, especially if you enjoy hunting so much, spend the money to get the right. I know not everybody can afford all this stuff, but spending the money on the good stuff it will last. Most of it will last and be worth it, and you'll be more comfortable in the end. And then it just comes down to planning those trips, Ben. And I'll tell you what, that elite membership with Onyx. I sometimes forget just how much comes with it. And I think some people are like, well, why do I need the elite? I can look here and I can see who owns this property and I can find this public land. When you dig into it, some of those benefits, especially like I'm a guy that's talked about wanting to go elk hunting in Montana or Colorado or somewhere, go on an elk hunt for a number of years. And every year I usually miss the deadline for drawing, but every year it would just be me going or me and a couple of buddies who have never done it. And it's hard to figure out where to start, what tags you need, when the deadlines are, just getting preference points if you just want to start building preference points, and then where to go when you do it. And some of these benefits that are a part of this elite membership help you with all of that, don't they?
Yeah. So if you're an elite member, you get access to a few different services, Top Rut, Hunt and Fool, and then Hunt Reminder. So kind of the biggest thing, because I'm obviously from Minnesota here and I've spent a little time out west, but all those draws, like different units, different species, it's baffling. So the first time I went on Top Rut, I was like, all right, well, let's just say I want to go out to Wyoming this year and hunt antelope. I was able to find areas that have I could essentially draw with 0 points, or say, all right, if I want to put in here, this is my percentage chance of harvesting an animal. This is my percentage chance of drawing it. And that's for, I think Top Rut is 8 Western states. So a lot of the big ones. So that's the biggest thing, knowing okay, this unit, there's no chance I'm going to draw in 50 years, right? The odds are terrible, but with this many points, I could maybe draw here, I could maybe draw there. And then once you kind of figure out what you want to do, Hunt and Fool is a great resource. Those guys are pretty much experts in Western hunting. They literally, part of their job is they have to go hunt X amount of new units every year. So they are informed about different areas, different species. So that's a great one. And then, like you said, Hunt Reminder.
Yeah.
You got to remember to apply.
Yeah.
So you type in the state, the species, select it. It'll send you a reminder when it's coming, when the draw is coming, because half the time it's like, I really want to do that, but I missed the deadline again. Come on. I do it every year for Wisconsin turkey. This year, I'm going to go do Iowa turkey. I think that Sunday is the deadline. So a great just to get your brain okay, I need to plan for the fall right now, because a lot of people are, it's a hangover from hunting season and you want to get on the ice, go fish, but this is the time to be looking forward to some of those fall hunts.
The last thing I'm thinking about right now is what I'm going to be doing in October or November. I mean, I'm always looking forward to it, but I'm not thinking about those deadlines if I want to travel somewhere. I feel like it happens every year in August. I start to see people in Wyoming shooting antelope, and I'm like, dang, I wanted to do that this year. And I'm, I got a couple buddies that go elk hunting. I'm like, dang, I want to go with you this year. Well, you should have applied in January, or whatever. And with that Hunt Reminder, they'll actually just text you, right? You get a text message that says, hey, if you want to apply for this, and you put in okay, say Wyoming antelope or Montana elk, you actually put that in, and then they will text you or email you the reminder of when the draw is.
Exactly. So no excuses to miss it. And
that
with this suite of options, like you've got all the information at your fingertips. It's a matter of, sitting down in front of the TV with your computer one night and you can figure it out. It's not rocket surgery.
Man, just helping you plan those big game Western trips. If you don't know where to start, these tools are priceless. And you probably have to pay, like I haven't looked into it, but you probably have to pay for all those services through all those other places. But if you get that elite membership with OnX, these are all free for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're saving a lot of money. And then not to mention all the other discounts we were talking about. Gear's not cheap. You get a bunch of discounts on OnX partners. So if you're going to buy one piece of gear or maybe go and try to go west hunt, you've got all these different options with your $100 elite membership.
Yeah, $100 for the year. Yeah.
Yep.
Not bad. I still, even at the off season, I pull up OnX just about every day. I feel like to look at different things and still haven't scratched the surface on all the options that you can do in there. Where do people get this, Ben?
You can go and download OnX on either iOS or Google from the Google Play Store or the App Store, as well as going to onxhunt.com. You can get them online as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's do some hunting next fall somewhere.
100%.
I want in on one of those trips. I don't care if we walk for 8 hours and flush one covey. I'm good with it. Let's do it. All right.
Good.
Ben Brettingen, thanks for the time today on the show, man.
Appreciate it.
Hear more at sportingjournalradio.com or wherever you get podcasts. 852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.